Okay, so now that we've talked about buying the property, the professionals we need to get set up, the construction cost involved, now you've got financing. There are basically two types of financing. There's bank financing, and then there's private investors or private equity, depending on your project. Okay, this is commonly referred to as debt, and this is commonly referred to as equity. Generally speaking, equity makes up 30% of a project, and construction or bank debt makes up 70%. Generally, bank debt runs from 5 to 7%, and generally equity is looking to make 15 to 20 or more. Why? Because they get their money back first, and they take more risk because they have to wait till that's paid off. Very simple. Now when you're going to the bank and you're going to your investor, expect the following. You will have what's called an origination fee. An origination fee ranges from 1 to 3 points depending on what your circumstances and what your credit are. You've got the bank's third parties. One of the funny things and the unfortunate things is when you go into a bank for a loan, the first thing you have to do is give them a check. Why? Because they have to hire an appraiser, they have to hire an engineer, they have to hire an environmental consultant, they have to hire a lawyer, and anybody else they want. So, you'll say, well, I already hired an architect, and I already hired an engineer, and I already hired an appraiser. Well, they'll take your information, but they can't use it by regulatory requirements. They have to engage their own consultants. So expect, depending on the size of your project, there's a dollar amount goes with every one of these. Now, also, generally speaking, on an ongoing basis, if you're going to do construction for whether it be 3 months or 2 years, depending on the size of your project, their engineer, okay, is going to come out every month, so you have to factor that in for your monthly inspections. That's a cost. So you've got the origination fee, you got the bank's appraiser, engineer, environmental, lawyer, and the monthly inspections, and then you have the interest. So how do you figure your interest? Well, simple rule of thumb, very easy. For new construction, if you start owing 0 and you're building $1 million building, when you're finished you will owe $1 million. Right? If that is a 1-year project, right, you're going to take the average, which is the 6 months, and you'll have a 6-month average. Your average is $500,000. So you'll figure that the average balance of this 1-year loan is $500,000, then you'll multiply it by the interest rate, and that's how you'll get your interest line item. Now, depending on what you're building, let's keep in mind when we're factoring our interest, one thing, by the way, if you think it's going to take a year to build, assume it's going to take 18 months. Very simple. Now, depending on what you're building, the day you finish, you will owe $1 million. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're done with your interest line item, because you're building a building. Well, when you're finished, you have a C of O, but you have an empty building. So you're going to then carry this building to a point where it stabilizes. This is either you have a permanent mortgage, you've filled the building with tenants, and you've got a permanent mortgage to refi it, or if you're building condominiums, you'll owe $1 million. Hopefully you'll have sales, but then the outstanding balance goes down to 0 again, hopefully, because we'll have finished this $1 million building, and then we'll have one apartment close in the next month. Next apartment closes, we owe less, we owe less, we owe less, we owe less, we owe less. So, if we think after we finish the building it's going to take 6 months to sell it, or 6 months, whether it be to sell the condos, or 6 months to sell the whole building, or 6 months to refinance it, you have to figure your total balance and then how long till you get out. If you're selling houses or condos, it will go down by the number of months as you sell out. If you're going to sell a building, or you're occupying and refinancing, you're going to hold that $1 million because there's no capital event, and then you're going to refi it when it's occupied. So, depending on the amount of time you think it's going to take to repay and how the repayment's coming, You have to factor in post-construction interest. Cut.